Shalom, sir. Dinner is served.
What's for dinner? Yeah. What's for
God
dinner?
has blessed me with you.
Yeah. Sister Jemima.
Shalom, sisters of Israel. Welcome to What's for Dinner. My name is Sister Jemima of the House of Jacob. Today I'm going to show you how to make collard greens, but in this recipe, we're not going to use water or smoked turkey legs like when we grew up, when we learned how to make it that way. I'm going to show you another way to do it. Even though the other way may be healthy using lawful meats like in Leviticus 11, I'm going to show you how to make it without any water or smoked turkey legs. And the reason why I'm showing you this way is because you may be some vegetarians out there, or you're trying to eat a little healthier, or you wanted to know, if I didn't have any smoked turkey legs in the house, can I still make collard greens and make it taste the same way? Can it be much healthier for my husband, for my Lord, for my family? Yes, you can actually do that with some substitute ingredients that won't impact the flavor of it, and you'll love it. So what you're going to need today is you're going to need either a bag of cut up collard greens that you can get from the supermarket, or you can get 2 to 3 bunches of fresh collard greens and wash them off and just cut them up. Then you're just going to need 1 red bell pepper. You're not going to get the hot kind of bell pepper, just a regular one. And then you're going to need some olive oil and also some spray version of an olive oil. So when you start cooking it and moving the collard greens around in the pan, the oil will be able to lay on it really nicely. And last but not least, you're going to need to buy McCormick Grill Mates. And the flavor you're going to need is Texas barbecue, rich and smoky flavor, and it has sea salt in it. So it's really good, a really good substitute for using like smoked turkey legs, because I don't believe they do that with sea salt. They may do it, but if you're watching what you're eating, you're watching what kind of things you buy, you're trying to get healthier for your family, you're trying to make sure your husband is eating healthy and he's enjoying the meals much better, you want to get something with sea salt in it, and then you want to also watch the amount of sea salt you eat as well. So that's a really good version. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do when we start cooking is we're going to wash our hands. Right? Get our hands cleaned off before we start touching other things. And we're going to make sure we clean off the collard greens. Off these collard greens. Let's get these collard greens cleaned off, because I didn't get them in a bag. So what I'm doing is I'm going through each leaflet here. Let me turn the water off. I'm going to go through each leaflet because when you get them fresh, you have to check for insects, things like that. See if the leaves are in good quality. Like this one is green and there's no holes in it. Sometimes you get collard greens with holes in it. You just pluck it off, right? You're going to look at the stem, make sure everything's kind of looking great on them, and then you're going to rinse them off one by one or in a nice little bunch. There's 2 techniques to it, but this is probably the best one. You can kind of inspect it this way. You could cut them all up first, and then constantly, rinse the cut up collard greens. You can do that because you buy them in the supermarket that way as well. Or I'm going to show you this way because maybe you've never seen this before. Maybe you never made collard greens before. Like when I was little, I learned how to make collard greens in water, right? And I had to use like smoked turkey legs, for example, to get the water all seasoned up, and that's where the smoked flavor was. But in this recipe, I'm going to show you just another version. Because, as you learn recipes from your mothers, your grandmothers, your aunts, your sisters, your cousins, right? Or just, family friends, you kind of tweak it to what you can do, right? What you like, what your husband likes. That's really what it's all about, right? Your husband and your family. You want to see how they like it. So I wanted to tweak mine to make it healthier for my husband, and then it also would make it healthier for me by me doing that, right? Like Titus 2, 3 through 5, and you'll learn how to love your husband and your children. So I'm just going to be rinsing these off, right? You can do one by one, or you can do a whole bunch of them. And you just go through all of them and just kind of inspect it. As you become a pro at this won't take you long at all. Once you wash your hands before you start cooking, and then you just start cleaning the vegetables off and everything, you'll be able to do this process really, really fast. So with collard greens, there's the leafy part, and then there's a stem. And you'll see, some people may throw the stem away and think that it's not useful. But I cook everything on it because the collard greens have a lot of nutrients in it. It has vitamin C, it has vitamin K in there, lots of different vitamins and minerals in it. And it's delicious. And my husband loves it. He doesn't complain about it. If you know how to cook collard greens really well, nothing will be left uneaten. And it's very healthy. So you may want to try that when you cook yours as well. So I keep everything. I don't throw anything out. You can also use this stem if you want to grow your own collard greens. You just have to watch a tutorial online. They'll show you how to do it. You can make collard greens out of a pot. You can grow them out of a pot, inside and out. You just have to learn the technique for making collard greens. So I'm going to show you an example of how I cut up my collard greens. There's different techniques. It depends on whatever technique you like. So I have a cutting board, and I'm laying maybe 3 collard greens on a cutting board. I'm going to show you another view as well. But I lay them flat. I lay one on top of each other, one on top of each other, one on top of each other. And now I'm going to roll it like it's a wrap. I'm going to roll it, roll it, roll it. You see me rolling it? I'm going to roll it like that. All right? I'm going to roll it just like this. And now I'm going to start cutting it into small little pieces. So I'm going to be dicing it really thin, really thin, real thin. I'm going to take my time. You want to take your time. When you're first learning how to cook, even when you become a pro, you don't want to go too fast, cutting it too fast, because you can cut yourself. You don't want to rush in the kitchen. You take your time. Your husband, your family will be very happy that you took your time to learn the recipe and share it with them, and to show the love that you have for them, because you want it to taste nice and you want it to be healthy. So as you can see, they're very thin, and this is going to be nice when you cook it. It'll cook faster this way. It won't get mushy, but it's very nice. And I'm going to show you all of this when it's finished. But let's keep going. So see, that's rolled up like it was a wrap, right? You can do so many things with collard greens, as well as cabbage, kale, spinach. But I'm going to be cutting it, see? I'm going to take my time. I'm not going to go fast. I want this to be a good tutorial for you so you can enjoy it. And there's a lot of recipes on how to make collard greens different ways, but I just wanted to share what I learned, and I hope that you enjoy what you see today. You just cut it, see, cut it. I'm going to just show you how to cut the whole thing, because I want to show you that I don't throw anything out in the collard greens. And it is good to, if you want to create a hobby for yourself, you read like in Proverbs 31 about a virtuous woman, she knows how to take care of a garden, right? So gardens don't have to be outside. If you don't have a large backyard, you don't have a yard, you might be in an apartment. You can get a little soil, grow some lawful plants, right? Like lettuce and collard greens and kale and spinach, tomatoes inside, things like that. So you see, I'm cutting all of this up, all of it up. I'm not letting anything go to waste, because there's a lot of nutrients in that. And when I finish, I'm going to show you the finished prepping I'm doing. This is prepping it before I cook it. See how that looks like almost like spaghetti? See? But it's cut up really nicely. You can get it like this in the supermarket too. But it may be a little thicker or thinner. But collard greens are good, so you'll probably enjoy it either way. see how I'm cutting everything? I'm cutting the stock. I'm taking my time. And it's real thin. It's going to look really nice on the table for the family, for your husband. You're going to like, oh, when are you going to cook some collard greens again? And this is going to be a good way to cook them, as well. There's another recipe that you can add. And you can always tweak it to what you like. And if you're thinking about it, it's always a good idea. Maybe I should try to grow collard greens in the house. I never thought to do something like that. Because we always try something new. Maybe you want to think about learning how to can some things too. You hear about that too. There's sisters that know how to do gardening. They know how to cook well. They know how to sew. They work from home. They make their own candles. Things like that. Clothing, soaps. You may draw. All kind of things. You'd be surprised how many beautiful, wonderful things sisters can do. And they teach others too. So you see what I'm doing? I'm rolling another one. You just roll it like a wrap, see? You roll it like a wrap. So what are some other things you can do as hobbies? As a repenting Israelite, if you like bird feeders, if it's allowed where you live at, get a small little bird feeder, hang it up, and feed the birds. Let your children see the birds come and feed from the bird feeder. Because this may encourage your children to want to be farmers one day, to grow their own crops, right? Because they gotta learn a skill, right? To learn how to be a farmer, things like that. See, I use everything. There's flavor in all of it. And your husband's going to love it. Okay, so you see what this looks like? After I cut up everything, this is what the collards look like. Very nice. Thinly cut, so when your husband is eating them, they're not too thick, they're not too bulky. Has a nice little flow on his plate. And it's going to be a really nice texture to it. I don't know if you can see that. The very green, colorful collard greens. And this is uncooked. And then what we're going to want is a red bell pepper. And so I've already cut up my red bell pepper. Let me show you what it looks like. I just took one red bell pepper. This is not hot. And I cut it up. So you just take one bell pepper, wash it off, right? And then chop it up just like this. And we're going to sprinkle it throughout the cooking, for the collard greens. All right? And this is the last ingredient right here. McCormick Grill Mates seasoning, Texas barbecue, rich and smoky. I don't know if you can see that. This is a good one. They may have other flavors, but this one works well for me and my family. My husband, this is the one he really likes. So I try to get this one because it has a smoked flavor to it. All right, it has a smoked flavor to it. It's rich and smoky. And it's made with sea salt. So just remember, the main ingredients are the collard greens. You want to cut them up, wash them up, cut them up. Then you want one red bell pepper. You want to wash that off and cut it up. And then you're going to need McCormick Grill Mate seasoning, Texas barbecue, rich and smoky, with sea salt in it. And you're going to need olive oil. You're going to need olive oil and then a spray version of olive oil as well. So let's go on to the next step. So now that everything is prepared. We did like a little prep. We washed off the collard greens, chopped them up, and chopped up the red bell pepper. And we had the Texas rich and smoky seasoning ready. A good technique before cooking the collard greens in a pan this size. This is about 11-inch, 9.5. This is about, I say 11-inch pan. This is really good technique is to preheat the pan first on low heat or medium to low heat. But you don't want it to go high because you don't want to burn the collard greens. So if you can, have it to low, mid heat when you are preheating the pan. And then once it's preheated, then the next step is to put the olive oil in there. And you be the judge. I'm going to show you a portion of it. I'm not going to measure it for you. It'll be about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil that I put in the pan. And then I'll spray it too. But I like to keep it on mid-heat, low to mid-heat, throughout cooking the collard greens slowly so it won't burn, and it'll taste really nice after about 45 minutes. And you want to monitor it. So let's let this preheat, and I'll show you the next step. Oh, and then how long do you preheat it? You want to supervise it, right? You don't want to leave the pan and just go in another room. You want to make sure you look at it. Turn it on to low to medium heat. Let it preheat for about 2 minutes without it smoking in the pan, because there's nothing in it. There's no oil or nothing. And then put the oil in there after about a minute or two on low heat. Okay, so I'm checking this. I let this heat up for a little over a minute. And now it's ready. So I'm going to put a little olive oil in the pan. And you decide how much you want. But this right here will be a good amount for me. And I'm going to move it around on both sides, because I have a lot of collard greens here. And I'm going to need to be able to move it around. All right, so I let this preheat for a minute, because once I put the oil in like this, you don't want it to start smoking. So now let's just grab the collard greens, because our hands are clean, and let's start putting them in the pan. So I have oil in the pan, and the temperature is on low. And if you hear any popping sound about right now, turn your heat down even lower. But you want to keep it on low heat because you don't want it to burn. And I'm monitoring it very carefully. I'm moving it around so the oil can get in there. Now let's add some red pepper. We're going to add red pepper. We're going to add some Texas seasoning. And I'm just going to sprinkle it. I'm not going to measure anything because I'm going to do it lightly. We don't want to over-season things because you don't want to put too much salt in here. You don't want to hurt your family, right? You want it to taste really good, but you don't want it to taste like it's salty, very salty, because collard greens have a really nice flavor to it. So what I did was I just put about 6 dashes in here of Texas seasoning. That's all I put in here. And it's going to marinate all the way through your collard greens. So now I'm going to sprinkle some red pepper on it. And I'm going to move it around a little. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a sprayer. It also gives me olive oil. And kind of spray it on top real quick, lightly. And then I'm going to put another layer of collard greens right on top of this pan. So here I go. Here is the collard greens. They're washed off, so there's not a lot of water in there. I made sure they drained and everything because I cut them up after I washed them. So now I'm going to put another layer of this on top. You see, another layer of collard greens. If they don't all fit at the same time, just cook it down a little bit. So this has been in the pan for about 5 minutes now. And it's not going to take any more than about 45 minutes if you're able to fit all the collard greens in here. So I'm going to put some more. And they're going to shrink up. It looks like it's not going to be able to fit, but it's going to shrink up as they cook. And if there's any nutrients that you see, any broth at the bottom, you probably won't see any broth because there's not a lot of water in here. It's just whatever's in the collard greens. Let me do some more in here. So that looks good. I'm going to move it around in the pan. And now the next step is to sprinkle a light layer of Texas seasoning on it. That's all I put up there. I don't know if you can see that. That's all I'm going to put on there for the whole recipe. I'm going to stop now. So I must have put up there about 8 dashes altogether. That's all I did. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in more red bell pepper. I'm going to put the remainder portion of red bell pepper in here. And if I add anything else to it, it won't be the Texas seasoning. It'll be just some olive oil if I need to add some more. Because it's really good to have a little oil. The right kind of oil in your cooking. You see that? So I'm going to let this cook for about 5 minutes, and once I check on it again, I'm going to stir it up and then add this remainder in it. And I don't have to add any more Texas seasoning. The seasoning that's in the pan will marinate all the way through, and it'll taste absolutely delicious. Okay, so I'm going to check on it. It's been about... I actually checked it sooner than 5 minutes. It's been about 3 minutes. I'm not putting any more Texas seasoning in there. For me, I'm not going to do it. You have to decide, what your husband decides, how he feels about it. Is it making him healthier if you're putting a lot of heavy seasoning on your food, or if you notice you're pulling back but it still tastes delicious to him? Keep it that way if you want, Whatever's best for your family, whatever's best for your husband is the key. You want him to be healthy. You want to be healthy so you can cook him healthy stuff. You want the kids to be healthy. You want them to grow up cooking healthier stuff so they can be healthier. All right, so I'm stirring it. Now I'm going to add that last portion of collard greens on top. See? I'm just going to add it on top. All right. Put this over here. And I'm going to lay this out in the pan. I'm going to lay it out in the pan. You see that? I have the heat on low, and I'm going to spray it because it needs to be oiled with a sprayer. You see that? And I'm going to put the lid right back on there on low heat. And then I'm going to keep checking it even though it's on low heat. And I want to cook this for 45 minutes. I want to keep coming back every 10 minutes or so on low heat and rotate everything. Let's take a peek at the collard greens. So even though I said check it every 10 minutes, I'm going to check it every 5 minutes for a little while just to make sure everything's okay and I can rotate the collard greens. All right, so that is looking pretty good. Everything was able to fit in there. It's cut up nicely. Let me look at the bottom and see if anything's burning. So nothing is burning. I have the heat on low. You don't want to burn your collard greens. You want them to be delicious. So I'm just rotating them, making sure everything gets oil on it. If you hear a popping sound, turn the heat down even lower. So I have mine on, the lowest I can get it is low, and then you move your way back up on the stove. So I have mine on a very low side. I don't want it to burn or be sticking at the bottom. See how it's not sticking? I want it like that. The bottom is not burning. See? It's green, and that's what you want. And you just want to rotate everything. Okay? So at this stage, you can decide when you feel that your collard greens are done, because some people like their collard greens crunchy. If you want them more tender, you cook it for about an hour. But you have to decide when you think it's done. You want to rotate everything to make sure everything is getting cooked. Because I just put some collard greens at the top, so I want to make sure they get to the bottom. I want to make sure there's some oil down there, so it won't stick. So I'm using a sprayer. So every time I rotate it, the collard greens have some oil on it. It's not over oil on it. It just depends on what's acceptable for you when you're cooking the collard greens. See, there's no water. I didn't put any water in there. I just washed off the leaves that I showed you earlier. I put a little bit of Texas seasoning on it. And as you cook, you do have to test your food. You have to check your food. You have to check your food. You have to taste it to see if that's what you like. Does he like it? Does he like it crunchy? Or does he want it more tender? You need to cook it longer. See how that red pepper just gives it a nice color to it? Red peppers, green peppers, yellow peppers, orange peppers, they have a lot of vitamin C in there. You'll notice when you just put the red pepper in there, it doesn't mess up the flavor at all of the collard greens. It doesn't affect it in a bad way at all. And you're adding some extra nutrients to your husband's diet, his healthy diet. Diets, you don't want to go on a diet. You want it to be a lifelong, healthy eating habits as you keep improving on that. Everybody has to learn something at the time, eating healthier, with God's laws, right? We all learn that. So, see, I'm rotating it, I'm inspecting it to make sure it's not sticking. I don't want it to burn. I don't want the collard greens to be burnt for the Sabbath day. I want it to be good to my husband's liking. That's what you want. He says, well, I want it crunchy. Don't cook it too long. Ask him, does he like it with the flavor that you have? Is it too much? Is it too little? How does he feel after cooking your food after a couple of days? Does he feel better? All right, so this, for me, is done. Now, I've been cooking this for about 35 minutes. So for me, it's pretty much done. I only have about 5 minutes left. So you can cook it up to 45 minutes. You just have to decide what you want to cook it at. But usually it takes about, half an hour, 45 minutes to cook it if you're doing it, like this. So you keep checking it, keep rotating it, and make sure it's cooking on low and stirring it like this. Right. So I hope you enjoy this recipe. So after you finish and you let the collard greens cool off and it's to your seasoning taste liking, based on what your husband likes and what you like, you can, if he likes it with a little spice to it, you say, okay, it tastes really good, but maybe you may want it a little hot. Some husbands like it hot. Some, they like a little hot pepper in there. I use hot sauce and stuff like that. But you have to be careful with the salt. So, and especially as you get older, but you really have to be careful with your salt when you're cooking for your husband, your sons, and your daughters, and other family who likes to come over your house and eat, or they want to learn a recipe from you. You can add some crushed, hot, dried up peppers in it. Just sprinkle a little bit in it and mix it in. If you want it a little bit spice to it. Otherwise, your family should enjoy this really nicely. Take a look at that. This is what it looks like when it's in a platter. And I use olive oil. You can serve this with some roasted, sliced sweet potatoes, some veggie meatballs that have sea salt in them, because not all veggie meat is made with sea salt, so you want to watch that too. So you may have some veggie meatballs or whatever you like, some roasted fish, some roasted salmon that's roasted in maybe some mayonnaise, barbecue sauce, mustard, balsamic seasoning, things like that. And a nice, delicious piece of unleavened bread and maybe some red wine. So now I'm going to show you how to make chocolate unleavened bread. I'm going to read the ingredients for you. So I have a little cookbook that I like to share with you. And it's kind of probably a good idea for you to get one if you are married or you are planning on getting married. It's really nice to teach to your children to get them a cookbook, you know, when they're young, as a gift sometimes, and they'll like it and go through it with them and show them how to write recipes in here. So this one's called chocolate unleavened bread. And so I saw this recipe online, but I wanted to tweak it to an unleavened version of it and just add some healthy things to it for my family, for my husband, for whoever wanted to see it. So the ingredients that you're going to need is 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/3 cup of unsweetened almond milk. That has about 30 calories for each cup. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extracts, 1 1/4 cup of almond flour, 1/2 cup of 0-calorie sweetener, something like Splenda, if that's what you like. You can use regular sugar if you want. I would recommend something like a coconut sugar kind of thing because it has a lower glycemic level than the regular sugars. It's healthier for your family. Or you can use cane sugar, but you want to look at the glycemic index. You'll see what I mean. It'll say the lower, you want to pick something that has a lower glycemic level. So the coconut sugar is lower than something like cane sugar or honey. But you can even use 0 calories where there's not even any sugar in it. There's no calories. And then 1 cup of walnuts. Okay, so now we're going to go over step by step how to mix our ingredients to make the unleavened bread. Preheat your oven to 350. Add 1 1/4 cup of almond flour to your bowl. Add 1/2 cup of unsweetened sugar or 1/2 cup of coconut sugar or other sweetener. After adding 1 1/2 cups of almond flour and 1/2 cup of sugar sweetener, now let's add 3/4 cups of unsweetened, rich, dark cocoa. Let's mix the dry ingredients. One-third of unsweetened almond milk, 1/4 cup of olive oil, 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce, 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 cup of walnuts. Now let's mix everything together. Now let's transfer everything to a baking pan. Okay, so I've transferred everything here to a baking pan. And I'm going to put this in the oven on 350 for 40 minutes, but I will monitor it halfway through, perhaps 20 minutes in between. So I just had a look at the unleavened bread in the oven. That's about 20 minutes through, and it has about 20 minutes left. It looks really good. It's baking very well. I just need to let it cook for another 20 minutes. Once I take it out of the oven, I'm going to let it sit and cool off, and then it'll be ready to serve. Okay, so I just took this out of the oven. It's been about 40 minutes. I'm going to stick a fork in the middle of it to make sure it's done. And there's nothing on it, so I can tell that this is done. Let me stick it in another spot just to make sure. There's nothing coming off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool off for about an hour. And then I'm going to use a spatula to take it out or some other instrument. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I like to say, all praise to the Most High in Christ blessed. Shalom. All right, so I'm going to show you a bonus recipe. It's with some ingredients I already have in the house. So I'm going to use a package of Seed of Change, organic quinoa and brown rice. I'm going to use some hemp seeds, turmeric. I'm going to have some turmeric in there, some Parmesan cheese, some curry powder, and some black beans. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this is already like pre-cooked. I just have to heat it up and get it going. So I'm going to put a little olive oil in my pan and then add 1 tablespoon of water to the rice. After I put the rice in there, mix it up together, and then add the other ingredients. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil to this pan, and this is on low heat, very low heat. So a little olive oil, not too much. I'm going to swish it around. It's about a tablespoon. Now I'm going to add this package of rice. And break it down on very low heat. This is already cooked. You don't have to boil it. The directions say just pretty much add 1 tablespoon of water to this. So it's already cooked. This is just to get it stimulated to start cooking. So now I'm going to add that tablespoon of water. I'm going to mix it together. I'm going to add about 2 cups of black beans or a 16-ounce can of organic black beans. And I'm going to mix it up together. Okay, so that looks like that's mixed up pretty well. I'm going to add 1 cup of hemp seeds, H-E-M-P seeds, to the rice and mix it. So if you find you need to put a little bit more oil on there, what I like to do at this stage is I'm not going to pour olive oil on there. I'm just going to spray with the sprayer. So I don't use too much olive oil because we don't want it to be over oily. I'm going to stir it together. Now I'm going to put some seasoning in it that'll really help this taste. Okay, so now I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of garlic powder and sprinkle it over. I'm gonna use about 2 tablespoons, a tablespoon or 2 of turmeric powder. This is gonna change the color of the rice. Now I'm going to stir that together. It's still on low heat, so I won't overcook it. I won't burn the rice. We're going to take our time and mix it together. We're going to add some more ingredients. I just wanted to mix the turmeric in it first and the garlic, because we're going to let this simmer for a few minutes after we mix everything together. Okay, now I'm going to put in some curry powder, and I'm going to put about a teaspoon to a tablespoon of curry powder in here. You decide how much seasoning of each one you would like, how much turmeric, how much curry powder, garlic, and Parmesan cheese. But I'm going to put about a teaspoon of curry powder in there. And last, I'm going to put in some Parmesan Romano grated cheese. And I would say that's about 2 tablespoons. Now I'm going to mix the remaining ingredients together on very low heat. Looks like it has enough oil in there. It's not dry. It's not sticky. And this is brown rice mixed with quinoa. And I added some hemp seed to it, some turmeric, some curry powder, some garlic, and some Parmesan Romano cheese to it. And I sprayed it with some olive oil. Now I'm just going to let it simmer on low heat for 5 minutes, and it will be done. Okay, I just turned off the stove, and this is ready to serve.
Shalom, sir. Dinner is served.
What's for dinner? Yeah. What's for dinner?
God bless me with you.
Yeah. Sister Jemima.